Hello everyone and welcome back to Affinity for Commander. My name's Alex and today we're going to be taking a look at the new Kudo from the upcoming Commander Masters set. Sorry, I definitely meant Modern Horizons 3. You know, not like it's not going to do ridiculous things to our format or anything, come on! But just before we start, as always, if you like any of the cards you see here today, or you want to purchase the full deck list yourself, then you should do so through any of our lovely affiliate links you see in the description box below. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but really helps the channel out quite a lot. And as always, all prices you see on screen here today are supplied by the fabulous cardmarket.com. Now, onto our fluffy commander. Kudo, King Among Bears, is a 2/2 legendary bear for 1 green and 1 white mana. They read, other creatures have base power and toughness 2/2 and are bears in addition to the other types. So Kudo turns every creature on board into a bear and a 2/2. That is, every creature. That does mean not just yours, so your opponent that just spent a huge amount of mana to play that 10/10, yeah, that's a 2/2 now. So for this deck we're going to have a lot of bear synergies, cards that care about bears, as well as a sub-theme of +1/+1 counters. That way our bears are going to be bigger than our opponent's bears, allowing us to actually hit in and get some very favourable attacks. Plus this way we get to have the most power on board, and the rest of our opponents can wallow with their simple 2/2 bears. At 1 CMC we have the now Bear Sentinel, because making each opponent pay 2 rather than 1 goes from slightly annoying to impossible to manage, and that's mono white card draw right there. Savage Swipe is here for both a flavor win and as a removal spell. Silk Guard to buff our board for our deck's secondary theme, and then give our key creatures, like our commander, hexproof. Swift Reconfiguration and Sword Splashes are both great removal, with the enchantment being a personal favourite of mine. Because there's nothing like watching someone tap out to play their broken commander, only to have it be made into a little beach buggy. Now up to the 2-drop slots, and we've actually got some proper bears here. Ayula, Queen Among Bears, serves as both removal with her second ability and bolstering our board, and playing into our secondary theme with her first ability. Some of the genuine bears we have are Grizzly Bear and Bear Cub. Don't ask why the Bear Cub has the same stats as the Grizzly, because I don't know either. And Ash Code Bear for some flashy action. Now, I know these guys aren't exactly powerhouses, but they do trigger our bear synergies just in case Kudo isn't out for some reason, whereas our other creatures are kind of relying on our commander to make them honorary bears. But we do still have more true bears in Werebear for ramp and Wilson Refined Grizzly for a bear that just has a slew of keywords. Now onto the honorary bears. Metallic Bear Mimic helps with our +1/+1 counter theme, and Masked Vandal is just a great way to exile problematic artifact or enchantment cards. Speaking of enchantments, Assemble the Players is a neat way to get through the top card of our library, as most of our creatures do have power 2 or less just naturally anyway. And to make casting all these bears slightly more bearable, we're going to ring both Nature's Law and 3 visits to grab any forest card we want for fixing, ramp and deck thinning. And finally, to round off our 2 drops, a couple of ways to keep our kings safe. And They Shall Know No Fear for both indestructibility plus a small buff. And Grand Crescendo, because paying 5 mana to give my board indestructible and put 3 2/2 bears into play it's just rather good, really. Now up to the 3-drop slots here, and we need to be remembering that Kudo makes everyone's creatures into bears, and we are buffing our bears with +1/+1 counters to just knock them a little bit above those otherwise normal 2/2s. Hence Abzan Falcon are giving all our counted up creatures flying. Flying bears! That's a terrifying thought. Arwen Weaver of Hope as a 2/2 now means every one of our forest friends ends with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on them, which will be exceptionally useful with Champion of Lamholt. As with the champion now being a 2/2 bear, so any further increase to their power essentially means none of our creatures can be blocked by any of our opponent's creatures. Speaking of unblockable, Legolas Greenleaf and Park Heights Maverick cannot be blocked by our opponent's 2/2 bears, and will be just getting bigger and bigger as the game goes on, with the Legolas drawing cards and the Maverick proliferating our counters. We do also have some honorary bears that take advantage of these +1/+1 counters in Rishkar to help them all tap for mana, Kodama of the West Tree so that when they deal combat damage we get to fetch lands from our deck, and Kutsil Malamet Explorer, who does a great Grand Abolisher impression, plus lets us draw a card when our 2/2s with counters on them deal combat damage to a player. Now, considering Kudo makes everything a bear, we get to play around some really weird synergies, like Welcoming Vampire now triggering on every single creature that enters our side of the field, provided they aren't entering with additional counters on them, of course. Plus, Fertilid now doesn't die when they remove all their counters to activate their ability. Plus, we're now adding more and more counters to them as per our deck's secondary theme, so weirdly this is actually kind of a bit of an all-star in our bear deck. But back to the actual, well, kind of bears. Adaptive Automaton is our lovely bear lord. Caller of the Claw is probably one of the best cards to flash in after a big board wipe, so we can rebuild nice and quick. Bearscape is a nice enchantment that helps us grind out the mid to late game. No, not that one. There you go, that's the correct version, yes. Mirror Entity helps us serve as an actual win condition and is still a bear for our synergy purposes. And our final two creatures are actual bears. The first is really not going to be cast for 3 mana, and it's Rampaging Yaogai, and is essentially a buffed up Rex Sage on bear steroids. And the final creature is Ulvenwald Bear, is just going to be a 4/4 hitty stick that will be benefiting from our Mimic and Automaton's buffs. Now, speaking of getting support from our buffs, our support at 3-drop is quite frankly insane. In fact, it's almost unbearable. Archdruid's Charm is so versatile it is criminal. It's a tutor, removal, and exile of an artifact or enchantment for just 3 mana. Bearmaster Ascension is going to be another of our win cons, as making our bears bigger than our opponent's bears is, it's kind of how we win. It's the entire deck's thing. Which is something we'll also be looking to do with Unbreakable Formation and Court of Garenbring, to be helping with our +1/+1 counter synergies. The instant also grants us indestructible, but no counters if we cast it in someone else's turn, with the court being a recurring +1/+1 counter adder, and if we're the monarch then oh boy, we better be winning the game soon with that effect. The last 2 cards of 3 CMC are Growing Rites of Itlamok for that lovely ETB trigger, and then for it to flip into Cradle of the Sun, and should eschew any mana problems we'll ever be having. And finally, Collective Effort. +1/+1 counters, destroying enchantments, and if we don't have Kudo out, then getting rid of a big threat. All for just 3 mana, and some potentially tapped bears. Now up to 4 mana, and we're getting to pretty much the last of our creatures here, because remember, Kudo's making everything a 2/2, so having a massive impactful creature with huge powers and toughness is kind of irrelevant for us. So all the creatures from this point on better have amazing abilities to be in this deck. Which thankfully they do. Beast Whisperer is the card draw all green creature decks love. Yiva, Nature's Herald, gives all our bears some much needed interactability with flash, such as, River Bear, because an Armed Walker is honestly just a fantastic way to get into that blue player for some good old damage. And the last creature at 4 CMC is Shalaya, Voice of Plenty. All the hexproof, all the counters, and a flying bear with Kudo. Absolute perfect for our honorary bear ranks. The last few cards at 4 CMC, however, are all support cards. Guardian Project to keep our hand filled when we're playing more creatures, as we are a creature heavy deck. Skyshroud Claim to round off our ramp, as I love just having those 2 forest cards potentially coming in untapped to still be able to use that turn. Ajani Greathearted is mainly here for his -2 ability, but also for the vigilance to be able to swing out with our now a larger board and still hold back blockers to protect Ajani and keep using his -2 for as long as we can. And finally, because we actually need to win the game at some point, and yes, we do, Triumph of the Halls not only gives a buff, but trample and infect, which also works really well with all our proliferating effects. So even if we don't kill everyone with our infectious bears, we can at least get into a spot where it won't be long before their completion is, well, complete. Speaking of being complete, just before we get on to the 5 and 6 drops, I'm going to jump ahead to our actually highest CMC card in the deck, and that is Elesh Norn, Grand Cenobite. And yes, for those eagle-eyed viewers, Elesh Norn's static ability does make all of our bears 4/4s and kills all of our opponent's creatures instantly. Now, did I make this entire deck around one simple yet silly card interaction? Maybe. Did I in fact include both Worldly Tutor and Eldritch Army's Call in the deck just to be able to fetch up Elesh Norn? Possibly. Is this still a broken and hilarious interaction? Definitely. On to the last creatures of the deck. We have Karametra, God of the Harvest, to fetch basics out of our deck for ramping us to high heaven. Stormkilled Vanguard, both for the pun on bear down on the adventure side, but also for the synergy of not being able to be blocked by any of our opponent's bears when they are cast as a creature. And the last creature is also a genuine bear. Well, half of them are, Surak and Goreclaw. Adding trample and +1/+1 counters to our creatures is a perfect representation of our deck and a fantastic creature to finish on. That however doesn't mean we're out of cards though. We still got counter action with Cathar's Crusade, an incredibly dumb card that rarely sticks around, but if it does, it will just swell our board to high heaven. Titania's Command gives us graveyard hate, ramp, bear tokens, or more +1/+1 counters. Just a lovely neat card for the deck all round. And Contagion Engine, which yes doesn't give +1/+1 counters, it will however kill all of our opponent's creatures after the initial +1/+1 counters and then a single proliferation activation. We're then also running some card draw in Vanquish's Banner to give a buff to all our bears and then draw whenever we cast one of our true bears. Not the ones made bears by Kudo, as the banner is on cast, not ETB. And finally, Camaraderie. It's life gain, it's card draw, it's an anthem effect, it is everything a growing creature deck needs. Now onto the lands for the deck, and we are in Selesnya, we're in green-white, we're a creature heavy deck with a +1/+1 counter theme running through it, so there are definitely a few notable lands that are a must for Kudo. Argos, Sanctum of Nature, is our last resort for using unspent mana in our turn to churn out more bears for our adorable army. Castle Balangring is a ramp just for creature spells by essentially turning 5 mana into 6 mana. Gavany Township is such a powerhouse of a card that the effect seems cheap at 4 mana and tap to put counters on all our creatures. It is honestly one of my personal favourite lands. Khan's Bastion lets us proliferate all the counters we want, including those -1/-1 counters from our engine, as well as any leftover infect counters from the Triumph. Oran Reef the Vastwood helps by adding more counters to our creatures that enter the battlefield, and since most of our deck is green, that restriction really doesn't bother us at all. And finally Plaza of Heroes, because we really need Kudo to stay around for our deck's plan to really go off. And if people's creatures aren't bears, and some of our creatures aren't bears, then we have serious problems with our deck. So yes, keeping the kings safe is of the utmost importance. Kudo overall is a fantastically funny commander, messing with our opponent's creatures as well as giving ours the actual synergies we need to help the deck work and keep that bear theme going throughout. He's thematic, he's cheap mana cost, and will also have a massively powerful impact on the game just by simply existing. And also, it's just really funny to make big scary creatures into 2/2 bears. And with the +1/+1 counters, you get to trample over all those other bears as yours are the much better and far superior ones. And honestly, looking how silly and impactful Kudo's effect looks to be, some people might not even want to play against it, because those people might just simply not be able to bear it. And that will be the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. What are your favourite cards for any bear type deck? Let me know in the comments below. We will read every single one of them. And as always, all videos you hear our support and made possible thanks to the support of our amazing patrons. You guys are truly awesome. If you too like to support the channel and become a patron of yourself and get access to exclusive EDH related rewards, then be sure to check out our link in the description box below. You can also support the channel through the quick and easy ways, liking this video, subscribing, commenting, and sharing it on your preferred social media platform. But, as always guys, I've been Alex, and I'll see you next time.